it's Margot, and today I'm bringing you the true story, to the best of my knowledge, of Amy Carlson, also known as Mother God, and the Love is One religious group, seen as a cult by many, we'll get deep into that made headlines in 2021 for the shocking mummification and subsequent decoration of the corpse of their spiritual leader. I'm splitting this one into 3 parts due to length, so be sure to check out parts 2 and 3 when you're finished here. If you're ready to get spooked and spine tingled, after a couple quick but necessary disclaimers, keep watching. This video series contains topics and images that may be upsetting to some. They include allegations of child abuse, animal abuse, financial abuse, medical abuse, sexual coercion, child abandonment, cult indoctrination, and abuse of a corpse, along with discussions of addiction and eating disorders. This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All allegations are, by definition, only alleged. Technically, nobody has been found guilty of any wrongdoing in regards to the events mentioned here in a court of law, at least at the time of this recording. My opinions are my own and not representative of anybody but myself. Please don't harass anyone mentioned in this video, including me. Merriam-Webster defines a cult as 1. A small religious group that is not part of a larger and more accepted religion, and that has beliefs regarded by many people as extreme or dangerous. 2. A situation in which people admire and care about something or someone very much or too much. 3. A small group of very devoted supporters or fans. The more I dug into this story, the more convoluted and disturbing and heartbreaking it got, and I'm pretty sure I'm only seeing the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to just lay out the facts as well as I've been able to piece them together over the past few months from many articles, interviews, and admittedly shallow dive into Reddit threads and too many of Love is One's own videos. I've taken everything with a grain of salt and tried my best to keep an open mind. Settle in and get cozy, maybe grab a comfort object or a cup of tea. This is one wild and twisty rabbit hole. Amy Carlson was born on November 30th, 1975. Details of her early life are sparse. What we do know of her childhood is that she was born near Wichita, Kansas, and she grew up in Oklahoma City and Dallas, Texas, in a middle-class family. Her parents were divorced, but her younger sister, Chelsea Renninger, says they had a great upbringing with loving parents, though Amy did reportedly have a difficult relationship with her stepmother. Amy was the eldest of 3 daughters. Amy was a straight-A student in school, participated in choir, and was said to have had a lovely singing voice, which some have described as angelic. Her family has described her as bright and popular. If normal is a thing that exists, Amy Carlson's upbringing seemed to be just that. Amy's family says she always had a tendency to make bad decisions about men. She'd already married 3 times in her early 20s and had 3 children with different fathers. According to her sister Chelsea, Amy started exploring New Age beliefs online at some point in her early adulthood. Chelsea recalls that Amy would leave home to meet someone and come back talking about strange concepts, such as starships. When Amy turned 30, something seemed to change in her. She suddenly left her 3rd marriage in 2006 and her job as a manager of a Texas McDonald's. Amy also left behind her 3 young children, the youngest being only 2 years old. Her oldest son, Cole Carlson, now 25, says his mother abandoned him when he was 12. According to Cole, while he was living with his father, he was preparing to travel to Houston to spend Christmas with his mother, but shortly before the trip, he learned that his mother was leaving the family completely. He said, "My life is normal, other than the fact my mom left to join a cult." He also said he loved his mother unconditionally, though he'd remained estranged from her for most of his life. He said, "She wasn't the best mother even when she was around, but I loved her to death." When Amy left her family, that was the last time most of her relatives ever saw her or spoke to her again. Amy's sudden departure from everything she'd ever known was shocking to her family, who said it's like she suddenly became a different person. Her family did their best to keep in touch with her over the next 13 years and tried many times unsuccessfully to get her to seek help. Amy's mother, Linda Haythorne, later told Dr. Phil that Amy had never been maternal, but had never seemed like a mother who would abandon her children. They were convinced she was battling a mental illness, and they weren't ready to give up on the mother, daughter, and sister they'd known and loved. So what could make someone like Amy Carlson, who could have been anyone's sister, mother, or friend, suddenly abandon her family? By the mid-2000s, Amy was spending a lot of time on a New Age forum website called lightworkers.org, and in particular chatting with a man who called himself Amerith WhiteEagle. In a forum post dated September 1st, 2007, Amy made her first known post about a divine message she'd claimed to receive, saying, "And I'm cleaning my kitchen, baby just down for a nap, and I feel a tap on my shoulder and a wisp of air in my left ear. And then I heard a lower-toned voice, not really even a voice. It was like a message a violin would play in its music, and it said President of the United States. I thought, what? What in the world does that mean? I dismiss it, and then I hear, you are going to be President of the United States." Amy began referring to Amerith WhiteEagle as her twin flame, two bodies sharing a single soul. WhiteEagle became the first father god to Amy's mother god persona. WhiteEagle was only the first of several father gods. Amy explained that the father god energy was just too big to fit into one mortal man, and therefore required many human vessels. However, there could only be one mother god. It said that it was Amerith WhiteEagle who convinced Amy that she was God. So I guess it's unsurprising that he apparently has no desire to answer questions from the media now that it's all gone to shit. But I'm trying not to get ahead of myself here. On December 10th, 2007, Amy left her family to live with some like-minded strangers, saying she had released her 3D relationship to be with her mountain man in Colorado, and announced she had a calling to usher humanity into a grand awakening. Thus was the beginning of Love Has Won. Amy and her core group of followers eventually ended up setting up a home base in Crestone, Colorado. Crestone is said to be a vortex and spiritual mecca with more ashrams, temples, and Buddhist centers than anywhere else in the U.S. Frankly, it's a very strange, tiny town. 2 years later, Amy and WhiteEagle started a YouTube channel, which they used to promote various New Age beliefs, while largely disputing established science and mainstream spirituality. Their first video was uploaded on January 14, 2009. These uploads soon became a daily occurrence. Most of these initial videos were published under the name of the Galactic Free Press, regurgitating information Amy had found in New Age forums and newsletters. Over time, the philosophies would become more her own, mainly glorifying herself as a deity and cussing out non-believers. It wasn't long before Amy and WhiteEagle parted ways, though nobody seems to know exactly what caused that split. Amy eventually started gaining some notoriety through her YouTube channel. Her mother god, the mother of all creation, alter ego, seemingly grew from there. Amy also took on the name Leah at some point, and seemed to use both Amy and Leah interchangeably. After she settled in Colorado, Amy had a core group of about 20 full-time members living with her, but she was also reaching a large global audience online through her daily YouTube live streams, now called the Daily Energy Update. Her videos often had thousands of views. People sent donations, but the group also had a very questionable side business. Around 2018, Love Has Won was registered as a 501c3 charity, selling overpriced crystals and medically debatable supplements. Some of these supplements contained colloidal silver, which the group had used electrolysis to break down into solutions, that they sold online as health aids. They claimed these elixirs were pretty much a miracle cure-all. They also offered etheric surgeries, which Amy would perform remotely. The group's former website said that Amy was a spiritual surgeon who would work multidimensionally to operate on people's bodies and cure various physical ailments. She claimed she'd cured cancer, removed brain tumors, and helped cases of autism. She stated that she'd performed over 100,000 spiritual surgeries. Multiple surgeries were performed on a daily basis. Claiming to be a religion, Love Has Won's beliefs were very fluid, and like fluids, impossible to pin down. They incorporated elements of Abrahamic religion, New Age mysticism, and mythic beliefs, incorporating the advanced Lemurian civilization that's said to exist beneath California's Mount Shasta, with galactic beings and planetary ascension, along with QAnon-style conspiracy theories. The group often spoke of needing to tune in to higher vibrational frequencies. But tying all of this together, and above all, was the worship of Mother God, Amy Carlson. Amy described her group as a paradigm for bringing peace on Earth. She claimed she was God incarnate and had existed for 19 billion years, having lived 534 lifetimes, including the ones where she had been Jesus Christ, Marilyn Monroe, Queen Elizabeth I, Cleopatra, and Joan of Arc. She said she remembered every one of them, even the one where she'd been the daughter of Donald Trump, back when she was Queen of Lemuria. More on that in a bit. Though Amy's family completely denies this, Love Is One lore also states that in this most recent incarnation, Amy had talked to angels from the age of 4 or 5, and her parents had dragged her from church to church looking for help. They claim that young Amy had once yelled out "You're lying" during a sermon and had to be removed from church because the pastor said something about Jesus that Amy knew to be a lie, because Amy, of course, was Jesus. Amy also made other outrageous claims, such as that of Robin Williams being one of her spirit guides from the time he passed away in 2014 and completed his Starship integration. She claimed the actor spoke to her frequently. The group even listed him as a team member on their website. They believed him to be the Archangel Zadkiel. Love Has One believed that ordinary people were in a state of 3D consciousness, while members of their group had transcended to the higher level of 5D consciousness. Amy also promised that she would lead 144,000 chosen ones into the 5th dimension. Reportedly, some of the members have also claimed to be half reptilian, which will make a little more sense, but only a fraction more sense, if you know the absolutely epic Donald Trump vs. Atlantis and the reptilians in Lemuria, Mother God origin story. This is also the origin story of the evil 1% cabal that currently runs the world, determined to keep the planet in a low vibration and eat your babies. Seriously, it goes on and on. It's great. I really need to do a Mother God origin story video. It'd be so much cooler animated, though. Members called Amy Mom or Mother God, and she referred to them as her children. Her followers were also given angel names. On camera, followers seem beyond content with their lifestyle, but former members tell a completely different story. The Saguache County Sheriff's Office in Colorado said it had received complaints from families across the country, alleging that the group was brainwashing people and stealing from them. Law enforcement and former Love Is One members have described the organization as a cult. Many former members have recounted the abuse they claim to have endured at the hands of Amy Carlson and her devoted followers, ranging from sleep deprivation to verbal and physical abuse to control over their food consumption to financial and sexual exploitation. There are multiple accounts of the group not allowing members to sleep more than 4 or 5 hours per night. The group counters this by saying those who wanted to sleep longer were just lazy. There are also reports from former members who say they were made to turn over their income and savings to the group. Devotees of Mother God, Lauren Suarez and Ashley Peluso, who call themselves Aurora and Hope, say members willingly gave their money to the group. Ex-members and family members say the group has conned members out of their trust funds, cars, disability and Social Security checks, and large sums of money. It's said that even Tommy Hilfiger's ex-wife Susie allegedly followed the group and almost gave them a blank check to support their mission. Former members have complained of long work hours in which they were not allowed to sit, and long online live streams where they were to work on recruiting new members and selling the so-called medicines produced by the group. Those who've managed to watch the group's videos and live streams without finding themselves thoroughly indoctrinated can clearly see Amy's de-evolution into alcoholism, delusion, and abusive behavior, finally spiraling into rapidly declining health and ultimately her death. It's going to be hard to understand the things I'm going to tell you about Amy's horrific and truly preventable decline in quality of life, without understanding, as much as a sane person can, that according to Love Is One's twisted doctrine, all of the world's suffering needed to be inflicted physically on Amy's body, which was to work as a filtration system, cleaning the world of the negative energies or low vibrations that abound. In order to fulfill this, Amy had to endure indescribable physical suffering. This is the only explanation I could find for why Amy would allow herself to die in such a slow and agonizing way. It's also what leads me to believe that Amy wasn't fully lying and manipulating with these off-the-wall stories. She seemingly did plenty of that, but I believe she also had some true delusions of grandeur and honestly bought into some of her own bullshit. I do, and this is just my opinion, believe that some of her closer followers were only there for the perceived inherited power that would come from her death, and the personal gain that could come from getting closer to a woman who others saw as a deity. But that's a video for another day, and will probably get me into trouble. Anyway, because of Amy being this filtration system for everything the group perceived to be negative in the world, her followers were meant to be a buffer from that negativity, shielding her from some of the pain. Theoretically, they could do this by showing their faith in her as their god and behaving in a way that they referred to as right action, which basically seems to entail doing everything exactly the way she wanted it done and waiting on her hand and foot. If her followers did anything wrong, any tiny perceived slight, disagreement, or inconvenience, it would cause Amy to physically suffer. Therefore, if a follower made a mistake, either Mother or Father God could have explosive fits of temper, often punishing or even banishing the offending disciple. These bouts of anger became more explosive as Amy's health declined. Technically, Amy Carlson was not actually supposed to physically die. Supposedly, nobody within the group wanted that to happen. Her followers had even sometimes claimed that if Amy died, everyone on the planet would die. So, it was important for all of their well-being to keep Mother God very comfortable and happy, an increasingly difficult task. While older videos show Amy as a composed, soft-spoken, loving Mother God figure, more recent videos show an obviously ill, both mentally and physically, woman, visibly intoxicated by alcohol, and the power she had over her followers. These later videos show Amy in a very disturbing and abusive light, berating her loyal followers and screaming obscenities, becoming increasingly more aggressive. In one video, Amy has another adult place a small crying child in a closet as a means of discipline. When asked about this by Dr. Phil, Amy showed no remorse and actually defended the abusive practice. In another, Amy berates member John Robertson for bringing her meatballs instead of chicken parmesan. This seemingly backs up the claims by former members that they were expected to wait on Amy hand and foot throughout the day. And let's not forget the cat abuse. Andrew Profaci traveled to Crestone to live with the group in 2014 after discovering their videos online. He'd survived a fatal car accident that had crushed his pelvis and left him having to relearn how to walk. It also left him with a new outlook on life and a deeper interest in spirituality, which led him on a spiritual journey, which led him to love as one. Andrew ended up spending 10 months in Amy Carlson's inner circle. When Andrew joined the group, he thought he'd be, as he said, a guy in the background. Instead, Amy soon told him that he would be a vessel for Father God's consciousness. The role of Father God was to be Amy's partner romantically and as a leader of the group. Andrew thought Amy was the most brilliant, insightful person ever, but he says Amy became angry and bitter, drinking heavily and becoming quite volatile, ranting late into the night about non-believers. He said, "Unfortunately, you couldn't get her away from this idea of needing this title and thinking she's God, and that really perverted everything we did." Andrew says he doted on Amy and tended to her every need, but she'd drink up to 10 shots of vodka per night. He claims that when she'd drink, she'd lose her cognitive abilities. She'd fall and walk into walls. He says her health was already failing while he was there, in 2014 to 2015. Alex Whitten from Mississippi left his wife and 2 children in 2020 to live with the group in Crestone. Only 3 days later, he was found wandering in the mountains, naked and dehydrated, with cactus needles embedded in his feet, and staring into the sun in search of light codes. Alex's wife, Ariane, says, "The group abandoned her husband after deciding he didn't have the right energy and wouldn't stop talking." She says they worded it as he was a shroom cloud on the wrong side of the mountain. Jason Castillo, the current Father God, said Alex had had 3 days to fight the darkness before allegedly abandoning him in the middle of nowhere. Alex's brother rushed to Colorado to take Alex home to his family, but they had a lot of hard work ahead of them. Before Alex had flown to Colorado to join Amy Carlson and Love Is One, his family had already begun doing damage control, bracing for the worst. They received power of attorney, listed Alex and Ariane's house for sale, and moved his 5-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son to live with other family members in Ohio to avoid indoctrination. Ariane even began considering filing for divorce to avoid further debt from her husband's donations to Love Is One. Alex's worried family, his wife, mother, sister, and brother, also attempted to place him in a psychiatric hold, but failed to do that. Leading up to these seemingly drastic actions, Alex lost his six-figure job as a maintenance supervisor at a high-tech glass company after missing shifts to follow Love Is One teachings during the height of the COVID pandemic. He donated his $15,000 to $20,000 severance to Love Is One before his family could put their safety measures in place, but they feel it could have been much worse. The Witten family considers Alex to be one of the lucky ones because he got out. Many Love Is One members have been in for years, with their own concerned family members only able to watch helplessly from the outside. After Alex's rescue from Colorado, his family realized they still didn't truly have him back. He stayed with his brother and sister, who worked tirelessly to undo the damage that had been done to his mind. They say he still kept staring into the sun, searching for light codes, allowing it to burn his eyes. They had to convince him that Mother God had given permission to stop doing that, and that she'd sent him special glasses. The Witten family contacted an expert on dismantling indoctrination, Rick Ross from the Cult Institute, to coach them on slowly bringing Alex's mind home. This took place over a 6-month reprogramming effort. Eventually, on the advice of cult experts, they were completely honest with Alex about what had happened to him and why. Even after coming to the realization that Amy wasn't really God, he still believed in things like light codes, Schumann resonances, and QAnon conspiracies, according to Ariane. Ariane says Alex still carries a lot of shame and feels stupid and embarrassed. He's left with a lot of psychological scars. He rarely speaks about his ordeal, but he feels lucky to be alive, and he's sad that others still haven't had the opportunity to escape the group. Writer Ricky Paschal, a former member of Love Is One, claims he witnessed many forms of abuse while in the organization. He says he knows of other members who were kicked out and left in the woods, similarly to what Alex endured. Mr. Paschal also alleges he witnessed Father God, Jason Casillo, using his position of power to engage in sexual activities with members of the group. Rick Ross, who assisted the Witten family, has worked closely with families of members and people directly involved with Love As One. He says former members and their families told him that Amy would sexually exploit her followers. He said, "I wouldn't say it if I hadn't heard it repeatedly. She would use people sexually. She would say, 'This person is ordained to be my partner,' and she would have sex with that member, and then later decide, 'Well, you were only a temporary ordained person. Now I'm going to move on.'" I think this is a good place to end part 1. In part 2, we'll talk about the completely avoidable spiral into Amy's death, the unexpected discovery and bizarre condition of her corpse, the group that's fighting to put an end to the damage they claim Love Is One has inflicted on countless people's lives, and how a Hawaiian community refused to let Love Is One win. You won't want to miss any of that one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what you think of this story in the comments below. I'll see you in part 2. Thanks so much for watching.